This is Kit 2 Theme G called the Graphemes for Long U. This is a theme that's similar to some that we did last year, looking at the long sounds for different vowels. This one is slightly more complex because there's just so many options with the digraphs that can make the long U sound. To get started, the big ideas in this theme will explain the nature of the specifically orthographic vowel length as opposed to phonetic length, the graphemes that are available for representing the long U and the circumstances that govern their use, that WH can represent the phonemes W, H, and some Englishes wh. I have to say that I wrote that down from the theme, but it is nowhere represented in this theme, so disregard bullet number 3. And finally, the allophones, or the different pronunciations of the long U. I believe number 3 was a typo. So to prepare for this theme, interestingly enough, most of the preparation are items that we have already done this year. They're the things that you've worked on with your kids regarding the different vowel letters, the alphabetic principle that there isn't one vowel sound for each vowel. We've already talked about digraphs and trigraphs. Something that we worked on last year but you may not have touched on yet is how you code a long versus a short sound. You could do that. There's lots of things in this theme that you could do in preparation for it that would be good review. My suggestion is that for grade 2, you potentially take a whole week just digging back into these items. These are the things that make the rest of real spelling very rich, and it seems to be that these things keep coming up and up and up, but for you grade 2, this may be the place to start. The main theme, the term long U, is unfortunate because it infers that it only refers to the single letter grapheme U. Melvin takes some time to explain that we as educators and certainly workbooks about spelling have overemphasized the idea that long U only applies to that letter U. Often it is with an E at the end, but there's so many other ways to convey the long U sound that we really do children a disservice if we don't explain those other ones as well. So that's what this whole theme is about, is looking at all the different ways that English represents the long U phoneme. So the long U phoneme, like the other long vowels, long U is a letter name, U. No other single letter grapheme has this property that it represents the name of itself. The allophones of long U, there are different pronunciations of the long U sound depending on which English, American, or British you're using. There is a tutorial film on page 9 about this. It's interesting, especially if you're in grade 2 and working within that theme for long term. However, I'm going to let you look at it on your own. The most common long U structure that kids will be familiar with, and we as teachers certainly have taught, is that when we have a long vowel represented with the final single non-syllabic E, which we have taken to call this final single E sound. One of the things Melvin points out, which we talked about last year and certainly want to continue, is that we don't want to call it a silent E necessarily, alone, or a magic E, because we're more interested in teaching children that there's a function for that E. And so it's a phonological function, and it is that the final single non-syllabic E is to signal that the preceding single letter vowel grapheme may represent a long phoneme. So it's actually a marker. It does something for us, and we need to know what that is. The way to tell if it's a single silent E and whether or not the U or any vowel that precedes it is long, first of all, is that the spelling being constructed has to be in a base word. Secondly, the raw phonological spelling has the final string vowel plus one consonant grapheme. If that consonant grapheme isn't there, then it's not going to be a single silent E. And this may seem simplistic to you, but remember, for our early readers, UE can go together, and if we teach them that the final E on any word is silent, right there they're trumped up when they try to read. So the final E is silent and is a marker that the vowel between It and a consonant grapheme is long. That's the key. Grade 2, this is really especially important for you too, I think. Grade 1 is going to do some work with this with other vowels. I can see them pulling in U easily, but it's just practicing the changing of short vowel words, like for example, cub down there, C-U-B. If you add a single silent E on the end, a final single silent E, then it changes the nature of the sound as well as the meaning, and the meaning is what's most important. Another thing that's interesting for students, especially early readers, and even those that are good readers, like my daughter who's 11, is the idea that the pronunciation can shift because of the base element's vowel. So looking at some of these words, we know that kids will be reading fluently, and because they start out, for example, with the word insane, and then it takes them a minute to move to the word insanity. And it's this shift, the fact that there is no longer the single silent E there that allows it to shift, final single silent E, allows it to shift in pronunciation. But the meaning is what stays intact, and that's what we want kids to focus on, is the meaning links between these words. This is where matrices are so important because it builds connected knowledge around vocabulary, but matrices do not predict pronunciation. Those pronunciation shifts happen because oral language preceded written language. One investigation that might be fun to take is to look at the bound base stud. It can be pronounced with either the long or short U, as in study or student. You can make a great word web of this, and there's good fluency practice. Writing the final long U, we know that no complete English word has a final V. We write VE instead. Conventions that apply to V are likely to apply to U. So we could tell students no complete English word has a final U. We use a different grapheme there. So the crux of this theme is to find out what other graphemes are long and available for writing the final U. This is the final template that Melvin provides that shows the different graphemes and their different positions. The trick to this theme is to take a journey with students that involves investigating the position of these different graphemes. We need to tell them there's all these graphemes, and then they need to do the legwork on where they will appear in words. The following slides show banks of words that students could collect that would then allow them to make a prediction as to which vowel digraph is represented for the long U sound where. I'm going to speed through these, and you can look at them alone, but the point of this whole theme is to investigate which and where in the word these things happen. Yes, that's my cat. The digraph EU, a bank of words that tell us it can be in the final and medial position. There is one indication of initial position. The digraph OO, final and medial. The digraph UE, final and medial, but never initial. The digraph OU for the long U vowel is never initial and comes from French. Melvin indicates here a medial position, but I didn't find it in final. Another thing for students to investigate. The digraph EU can be found in the medial position and initial as a prefix EU. Most of these words are Greek. The French origin digraphs UI and EAU are explored more in Kit 5 Theme A, a very uncommon digraph UI. However, one of our most common words with little kids is fruit, F-R-U-I-T. We also have the word beauty, which is of French origin and certainly something that students are surrounded with early in reading. Making a matrix and analyzing how this word is constructed would be an excellent, excellent opportunity for kids to work with word sums, matrices, and spelling out, as well as build their vocabulary. One question I would have for Melvin, coming from the state of Louisiana with my husband, would be the spelling EAUX that we find on so many words down there. Granted, they're English words for us, but I recognize they didn't come from English. It'd be fun to be teaching this in Louisiana and take that on. Good luck with this theme.